Okay. All right, good evening. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the City of Bloomington Township. And if everyone could stand to pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Walsh. Trustee Bolin.
Here.
Trustee Matney.
Here.
Trustee Becker.
Here.
Trustee Urban.
Here.
Trustee Ward.
Here.
Trustee Crable.
Here.
Trustee Crumpler.
Here.
Trustee Malawamboy.
Here.
And trustee Emig is absent.
Okay, thank you. And next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, moved by trustee
I'll
Crable.
second.
Okay, second by trustee Bolin. Are we doing voice vote or link?
Voice vote.
Okay.
Trustee Walsh.
Yes.
Trustee Bolin.
Yes.
Trustee Matney.
Yes.
Trustee Becker.
Yes.
Trustee Urban.
Yes.
Trustee Ward.
Aye.
Trustee Crable.
Yes.
Trustee Crumpler.
Yes.
Trustee Malawamboy.
Yes. And we're going to move on to a report by our elected officials. And we'll start with Township Supervisor Deb Skilruth.
Thank you. Wanted to update you, other than my supervisor's report that's in your packet. Wanted to update you on the HERE program. We are already at dispersing $10,717.11. One was for a mortgage, 5 were for rent. And in addition to helping them with, and I don't know exactly how many individuals, it's not on this report, but we also helped 6 utility payments. So we cleared, we were able to break people out of their arrears that they were in for both in combination. First, we run them through the emergency assistance, general assistance, emergency assistance program. And then we have this as an additional. So we've been pretty successful so far. And that's just been since the end of November after our board meeting. So I'll have an updated report for December, which will modify these numbers in January.
Thank you. Are there questions? Okay, seeing none, we normally would move to Township Assessor's report. Steve Scudder, but
And I don't have it. His report is in your board packet. I
Mhm.
do not have a comment on that.
okay, all
You
right,
wouldn't want me to do that.
okay,
I don't know if it's good.
sounds good. I think. Are there any public comments, Madam Clerk?
No.
Okay, no public comments. Okay, at this point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, a motion by trustee Bull. Is there a second? Trustee Becker. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned and we will see you at 6 o'clock. Okay, thank you. Happy holidays to you too.
Mr. Gleason, just doing a test. Can you hear us?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me, Amanda?
Sure can.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening. I am going to go ahead and call the meeting of the City of Bloomington Council to order. If everyone could stand, if you're able to, and say the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a minute or so.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Walsh,
Here.
Councilmember Bolin. Here. Councilmember Motney,
Here.
Councilmember Emig is absent. Councilmember Becker,
Here.
Councilmember Urban.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Councilmember Crable,
Here.
Councilmember Crumpler,
Here.
Mayor Millamwambly.
Here. Now I understand the city manager Gleason is joining us from another room, right? So how are
Correct.
we doing this?
Hey, Mayor, if you don't mind, can you hear me?
Yep. Okay. yeah,
Appreciate the
we-
opportunity to join remotely. I have had a direct COVID exposure. I'm just right on the other side of the wall from everyone joining this way, so I'll just do everything as we normally do when you call on me.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have public comment?
We do. We have two individuals registered for public comment.
Okay. Public comment is an opportunity for speakers to provide their views and feedback to the city council. It is also an opportunity for the city council to listen and hear diverse points of view. To maximize the impact of public comment and show respect for the expression of all views, speakers should maintain civility and focus on city issues. Speakers must identify themselves for the record, but are not required to give their address. Each speaker is given the floor for 3 minutes, and the council does not respond or engage in debate. Any speaker that engages in threatening or disorderly behavior will be deemed out of order and their time ceased. Thank you.
First up, we have Jackie Bayer.
Hello again. So my name is Jackie Beyer, and I'm here as a board member of Back the Blue Central Illinois. As you make the decision whether or not to approve the levy for the pension, today, I just wanted to make sure that we know that a fully funded pension is extremely important for our first responders, not only to retain those who currently serve, but to attract those who are interested in serving. In my opinion, the city needs to show they value our first responders by prioritizing them within the current budget and allocating the newly established revenue streams. It won't matter if we have a new pool, a new library, a new streetscape, if the places aren't that safe. And I hope the city council votes no tonight. If the city council votes no tonight, the city will still fund their obligation with existing funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Next.
Next, we have Scott Steinle.
Scott Steinle, Ward 5. It continues to amaze me that the city of Bloomington continues to delay resurfacing and raising the inlets, make all sidewalks ADA accessible, which was a federal law in 1990. That was over 32 years ago. I understand that as they're replacing the sidewalks, they are ADA accessible, but I wonder, it took 32 years to get there. You know, I saw an individual that has since moved since their granddaughter is no longer living with them. The granddaughter was in a wheelchair. And I saw the little grandmother hike that wheelchair up over the curb. And I went down, I said, you are out of your mind. I said, I'd call, at that time, Jim Karsh was Public Works Director at City Hall, and I'd raise Holy Net, and they were out there the very next morning to put that sidewalk in. They knew they were in violation. I wonder if somebody'd be 32 years late in paying their property tax, it would take 32 years to sell the property. You know good and well it wouldn't. Maybe Tim's salary should be frozen what it was in 1990, which was long before he came to the city of Bloomington. That was long before COVID too. Maybe it is time for the city to live within their means and stop raising taxes. And the reason they keep raising taxes is to know that they can. What about the streets? The infrastructure is terrible in this town. It's to the point to where I've ruined tires on a car because of hitting all the potholes in this city. As you enter the city of Bloomington, say, welcome to Bloomington, home of the potholes, rotten roads, high taxes. I noticed that Bloomington, with the motor fuel tax, it keeps going up. If that was supposed to go to the roads, I wonder where that's at. Is lying in somebody's pocket?
Thank you.
We have no other public comments and we did not receive any emailed public comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we got to move on to the consent agenda because there are no recognitions or appointments. Is that correct? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to pull 7F, please.
7F? Okay. You'd think I'd find it. I mean, we don't have item Z this time. Okay. All right. So 7F, anybody else? No? Okay, so is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 7F?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Bolin, second by Councilmember Craybill. And we have a link this time, right?
I assume Councilmember Bolin is approving. Since you motioned to approve.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, all right. The consent agenda, with the exception of item 7F, passes, no nays to announce. And now we're going to move on to item 7F. Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I read through the packet here on 7F and Cadillac Jackson, I don't live too far from Cadillac Jackson. And one of the things that popped out at me as I read through here, and I'm curious for your perception, Mr. Mayor, of when Mr. Bentley stated that if we did not approve this, that he would continue playing music until 11 o'clock. Was that just a statement that he was making, or did you feel there was something else behind that?
I don't think there was necessarily something else behind it. I mean, the compromise based on his request is for him to stop playing music at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
But if this does not pass, then, you know, he can continue to operate as he has in the past. Now could be subject to noise violation if that were to happen. Noise.
Okay.
So I don't think he meant that as a threat necessarily.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That was my question.
Mhm.
Should music continue, if we were to pass this, should music continue after 10 PM? And I would hope that the neighbors would not be sitting there going, it's 10:01, we have to call, it's a violation. You know, if the band's in the middle of a song, they're in the middle of a song. Things like that. I mean, there has to be some understanding, and there has to be being a good neighbor on both sides of the fence, so to
Mhm.
speak. And so what is the recourse to the city, and how if he continues to play music until 11 midnight, that type of thing? How quickly would it be that he would lose maybe not only his new license for outdoor, but his entire license?
Well, I would say that would be subject to a hearing.
Okay,
So I mean, it's complaint based. I think, and that's, I mean, to me, it was obvious throughout the conversation that we had. The goal was to try to find a compromise
okay,
between him and the neighbors, and it looks like he made attempts to, because he was initially reluctant to the 10 p.m.
okay,
But eventually he agreed to do that in the spirit of compromise. And prior to that, he actually also, communicated with a number of the neighbors surrounding, and, provided his, I believe his number, but also numbers of some of his staff, the person who works, I think the DJ or the person who handles the sound, so that people can let him know, is this too loud? And this is all in the spirit of compromise,
Okay.
trying to work as good neighbors.
So would you say that Mr. Bentley and the neighbors seem to have come to an understanding and an agreement?
That is my view, because we've given this a couple of times, and the folks who, there was one person who showed up, I think, each time. And I think at the end of this last hearing, the person seemed, okay with the compromise of 10 p.m. for no outdoor music as a limit.
Jeff, I have a question for you.
Yes.
There's only three directions we can go here. We can't make an amendment to this. What I'm thinking is I would like to make I'm going to call it a conditional amendment, that we do this for 1 year to give Mr. Bentley the opportunity to show that he's a good neighbor. I think that would be a fair thing to do. He's shown in the past he's really not willing to be a good neighbor, and I think we should give him the opportunity to do so. Is that something we could do with this?
Well, I'm not sure how this is gonna work, because really the issue is the extension of premise. So he's gonna go out and build it. And then what are we gonna tell him afterwards?
That would be pretty good financial incentive for him to be a good neighbor.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that we have ever done a condition liquor license before. So I'd have to, George Boyle, our deputy corporation counsel or assistant corporation counsel, deals with the mayor on all the liquor issues. What I would say is that, to your point earlier, certainly the license could be at stake if there are violations to it or violations to the conditions. So that would certainly be one recourse if he did not live up to the conditions regarding the music at 10 o'clock. A second recourse could be you have to reapply every year for your liquor license. So if there was, for some reason, and with the liquor license is correct, they reapply every year. So if there was an issue there could also be, perhaps some question as to whether or not the license should be granted or reissued or extended again. But if you wanted to actually add a condition like that, I would actually suggest that you table this until the next meeting so that we can properly determine whether or not how we would do that and how we would write that.
Okay, I think that with the knowledge that they have to reapply yearly, I think that covers that in my mind.
And I do, correct. I'm looking here to the deputy clerk who I know handles that, so I'm going to verify with her.
So liquor licenses, along with all of our licenses with the city, have to renew their license annually. So Cadillac Jacks would have to renew their license next November for the 2024 calendar year.
Okay.
So we can review it at that time.
Okay, that's all I'd have. I would like to go ahead and make a motion. We approve.
Okay, sounds good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so motion by Councilmember Walsh, second by Councilmember Crumpler. And we have a link
What's the motion again? Sorry.
to approve as presented, correct?
Which would include the 10 PM curfew
Yes.
on live music.
Outdoors. Okay, the item passes. There are no nays to announce. And we are going to move on to the regular agenda with item 8A, a consideration and action of an ordinance levying taxes for the city of Bloomington, McLean County, Illinois for the fiscal year beginning May 1, 2022 and ending April 30th, 2023 for the city of Bloomington in the amount of $320,384. And number two, an ordinance levying taxes for the city of Bloomington Library, McLean County, Illinois for the fiscal year beginning May 1, 2022 and ending April 30, 2023 in the amount of $6,270,600 as requested by the Finance Department. And I'm going to turn it over to the invisible man, City Manager Gleason, for introductory remarks.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a reminder to the community. This is a two-part agenda item. One portion is for the city's portion of the property tax levy. And then the second portion is for the library. And I know that there are brief presentations by Scott Rathman, Finance Director, and Jeannie Hamilton, the library director. But just as a reminder, this is roughly between the city and the library, depending on the school district that's attached to the city property tax bill. We are 15 or 16% of the total property tax bill. For the city portion, we are proposing that we maintain the property tax rate, but capture the additional revenues generated by the growth in the community. So the number of units that are assessed, and then also of those properties that were reassessed, the increased value. And for the city's portion, that's roughly $1.4 million that will be pledged and dedicated to paying down some of the pension obligation for both the police and the fire pensions. And if there's any follow-up questions after the presentations, we as staff stand ready. Scott?
Thank you, City Manager, Mayor, Council. Yes, great introductions by the mayor and the city manager. Presenting the final levy for adoption this evening for the library and the city as third public presentation. We did the estimate on November 21st and then had a public hearing, on December 5th. Next slide, please. So what's being presented is a $1.4 million increase for the city to, as the city manager mentioned, would be restricted for for public safety pensions. As indicated in the parentheses there, we've been utilizing our utility reserve over the last couple of years, and that is currently depleted. The library, $168,000 for operational expansion needs. As a reminder, the library exists pretty much solely off the tax levy revenues. They do not have a diverse revenue base like the city does with our sales taxes, et cetera. So to keep pace with inflation, you can see that inflation, roughly 8% over the prior year, that this is somewhat of a need. And then the library debt service, the final bond for the expansion, including the pool, the O'Neill pool, came in with a higher rate that was anticipated last year during this levy time. Next slide, please. So for the city, to just dig into the detail slightly, we're proposing $1.4 million, $700,000 dedicated to each police and fire. As I indicated, we've been utilizing over $1 million in the utility tax reserve since FY 2019. I've made a mistake recently. I think I referenced that was put into effect a utility tax reserve or utility tax increase in 2016 was actually 2014. So that reserve built over a few years and we started using it back in 2019. Without this increase, the city will have a $1.8 million shortfall in restricted revenues for the public safety pension funding. During last year's budget cycle, we did indicate that we'd be utilizing those reserves and that we'd have to address the shortfall sometime in the future. So, a couple of additional comments. Utilizing the levy to fill in that shortfall, that does provide additional, this is somewhat budget commentary here, but it does provide us additional dollars available to address roads and streets. So we're trying to look at an extra $2 to $3 million above above local motor fuel tax and the sales tax. So it provides us some flexibility there. It sends a strong message to the community and the first responders and investors that we are serious about addressing our pension liability, which is coming down significantly, but it's still at $118 million in this most recent audit between police and fire. And for the new revenues, really those have been allocated to new staff. And again, we're trying to utilize some of those towards roads. Next slide, please. So with this, I'll kick it to Jeannie for the library.
So the library levy request is $400,000 over last year. So the majority of that is going towards the $14.2 million bond for the library expansion and renovation that was approved in March. The way a bond works is we're supposed to have pre-fund each year's costs. And so last year we were a little short. So the library used reserves to fill in the gap. And then this next year, looking forward, we're asking for the levy to cover that increase over what we had anticipated at this time last year. And then the rest, we're asking for a $167,000 revenue growth for our operating budget. As Scott mentioned, inflation's at 8%, and that is a 3.3% increase in property taxes for our operating budget.
Okay, next slide, please. So while they are two separate levies, we reference the combined amounts quite often. So this exhibit shows the combined total for the city and library of the 28.6 million, 1.084% rate for the city, 0.3046 for the library. And you can see there with the projections and the estimates right now, we're looking at a slight actual decrease in the rate. And the city manager mentioned on a comparative basis, I don't have the dollar bill on this presentation, but it's about 15 to 16 cents or percent, depending on how you look at it, of the dollar bill when we show those dollar bills related to the District 87 taxing total in the Unit 5. Next slide, please. So at this point in time, the library and the city recommend the 2022 final levy be approved as presented, and we'll pause for questions and discussion.
Sure. So at this time, I think we have allotted 20 minutes for council questions, discussions. And like to know how many people would like to speak, at least so that we have a reasonable amount of time for everybody. Okay. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3. So you each have about 6.66 minutes to speak.
We'll get you in there, Sheila.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't see the light. Sorry. I was looking at the light. Okay. Councilmember Becker. Okay. 4, 5. Okay, good. That makes it a,
There's 8 of
yeah.
us.
5, so that's 4 minutes each. Okay. Okay, so I think we'll start with Councilmember Cribble because I saw you first. I look left.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll try to get through this briefly here. The argument is on not approving this is that we shouldn't capture the full EAV increase in our property tax levy but pay for first responder pensions from our reserves. And in support of that argument, Normal is given as an example of a community that did not take the increased EAV value. But the argument that Normal lowered its rates, so we should too, gets really blown up when we look at Normal's finances. Normal has an operating budget of 77 million with 51 million in reserves, compared to Bloomington's budget of 122 million, which is 50 million more than Normal, with only reserves of 36 million. We have always captured the EAV increases in our levy, at least since 2019. So this is nothing new. We also know that inflation just doesn't hit our residents, but the city as well, for example, in commodity prices, vehicle prices, almost any purchase. Yet this year, instead of using the captured increase in EAV value for expected inflation, the city is using this for our first responder pensions. Therefore, we may need to use our reserves to pay for these increased costs caused by inflations. It's not about too much taxes. It's about what services are received for the taxes that are paid. More than 50% of our operating budget goes to our first responders. We're just talking about making a further investment in our first responders and the pensions they are entitled to. By passing this, we'll be at a higher percentage than normal in having our pension liabilities fully funded. Our residents want to support the hard and sometimes dangerous work of our first responders by supporting them after they retire. Increasing funding for pensions will be consistent with one of our new goals that we established at our retreat of 100% supporting our first responders. So then going on to the library tax levy, Jeannie talked about that. And basically what we're talking about here is a range of $3 increase for a $50,000 home, $13 for a $200,000 home. And let's go back at how this was funded. We've got a 5.68 million grant, 4.1 million library reserve, 1.25 million in donations, and then the 4.2 million bonds. That means only 50% of the library renovations are funded through bonds. That is the library being fiscally responsible with its funding to limit the burden on the taxpayers. In high inflation, financial people say, let's talk about what can be an inflation hedge. Things you can do to lessen the impact of inflation. So I'd like to do a little bit of an example here.
Yeah, 47 seconds.
I'll be as quick as I can, I promise.
Exhibits A, B,
All
C, D, E.
So you got a family, small family with children, you know, and you know, you're going to need to purchase entertainment on things. So you might want to learn about transgender rights or how to be an anti-racist. Maybe you want a prescription that's going to cost you $50. Christmas movies like Christmas Miracle or Die Hard. You might want to play a game with the family. So you get Family Feud. And then of course, you know, you always want to get John Denver greatest hits. The older child may want to get a graphic novel about the gods. And then, of course, the younger children, Too Small Tola would be good for girls. And then you could talk about Little Shaq, written by Shaquille O'Neal. And so this all, I looked it up, you know, if you want to buy it, it's like $200, okay? So if I go to the library and all this stuff is in the library, how much is that going to cost me?
Nothing.
Okay, we probably have a high membership fee, correct? That we'd have to pay to get these things for free. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. And so, all right. And so what this library expansion is doing is giving a bigger opportunity for people to get things that they may not otherwise afford. And also, if you look with this expansion, it's more of a destination that it can be, right? So you don't have to go pay money for a movie. You're going to have expanded children's space, teenager space, 9 group study rooms, maker lab recording studios, discovery zone, it goes on and on. And what was your circulation like pre-pandemic? Like 1.2 million, something like that? Have you ever done a study of how much people save when they use the library?
We can run reports on that, but it's substantial, and usually I've done a return on investment for the community. And I think the last time I did it, it was about 4 to 1. So for every dollar invested in the library, we return $4 to the community.
It makes a lot of sense. So I'll close with, when you look at how much a library can save the average family, spending money on the library is a great return on investment, especially in these inflationary times. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councilmember Ward?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to actually move that we adopt the levy as recommended.
Okay.
If there's a second, but I also have some comments.
I'll second.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so, okay, motion by Councilmember Ward and then second by Councilmember Crumpler.
Yeah, I moved that we adopt this, and I will be voting in favor because it's what we need to be doing in order to be good stewards of the trust that is placed in us as a city council. Not just good stewards of money, but good stewards of the trust that is placed in us as a council. First off, it allows us to be faithful to our pension obligations, to people who we call on to be faithful to us as a community. People who put their lives on the line every hour of the day. Just as I was coming over here to this meeting this evening, one of my neighbors had a first responder vehicle outside of their house. I hope she's okay. My point is that every minute of the day, there are people who are putting their lives on the line for us. And we have an obligation to be faithful to those people. I am voting in favor of this because the library serves the constituents of this community, all of us, but especially those who need it the most in terms of things that we need a brick and mortar place, in terms of shelter. It was pretty darn cold today, and I was really glad to be able to get home to a warm house. And I know for myself, if I didn't have a warm place to be, the library would be one of the best places to go and would be a sacred place to go. It would be a clean place. It would be a safe place. It would be a place where my mind would be nourished as well as my body kept safe. It would give me access to technology if I couldn't afford it myself. I am so grateful for the opportunity when I run out of a book to be able to go buy a book because I want to, but better yet, to be able to tap into it through technology whenever I want to. The other resources that are available along those lines in terms of technology, the educational opportunities for people who need it the most. Those of us who seem to be complaining about this oftentimes are not the ones who need it the most. The people who need access to these resources, I don't see them standing here complaining about what we're proposing to do. Places to meet safely for our community, to have open meetings and open discussions, a place where the community can go. And I don't think there's a charge for those meeting spaces, right? Where else can you go to as a community member that doesn't charge you to gather? Maybe a city council meeting, except there's no limit on how long you can talk at those kinds of things. I am voting in favor of this because it gives us access to more favorable financing rates by helping us to boost our reserves, which in turn allows us to do more for the city and more for our constituents. I think we need to all take into account the fact that, yes, inflation is high right now, and the city is not immune from inflation. Costs are rising for city services, for the things that we need to purchase, just as much as it is for anybody else. It's not free to put salt on the road, for example. It's not free to fill potholes. Many people, week after week, raise those issues. Those things cost money, and those prices go up. Finally, I just want to say, in echoing of a couple of people who spoke last week, I also don't like to have to pay more for taxes. I don't like it. I don't like it when my tax bill goes up. Thank you very much for letting me know what to expect. But I am willing to put my money where my mouth is, because I believe in the things that this city does and the things that we as a community need to have in order to make this the kind of place that we want to live in. And so I will be voting for this, because we as a city have work to do, and that work matters, and that work costs money.
Thank you. Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Feed me. Feed me Seymour. Little Shop of Horrors. Some people say that that is a metaphor. The Seymour could be government saying, feed me more and more, taking more and more from the people. And as Audrey 2 took more and more from the people, it became a detriment to the people and to Audrey 2. And here we are saying, feed me. This is characterized as not a tax increase. It's correct. We're not raising taxes. That is 100% a truthful statement, but it's being disingenuous. I do have one question for Jeff. Both of these items are under one agenda item. We had two separate public hearings for these. I'm puzzled why and how we can have them as one item when they are two separate entities.
So I believe the motion from Councilmember Ward, and you can correct me if I was wrong, but was just for the city levy and the library levy, or one or both?
It's what's on the board.
Okay. And so your intent is the library and the city levy would both be approved at the same time?
Yes.
And the second was Councilmember Crumpler, and you were okay with that and approved that second?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the motion on the table. If that fails, so let's say you want to vote against one of them, but not the other, you could vote no. And if the motion that's on the table fails, then somebody could make a motion to approve one, and you could take that up, and then you could take up the other one.
My question is having them both on the agenda at the same time. I'm concerned that should this pass, someone would be able to come back and say, since these were two separate public hearings and these are two separate taxing issues, can we have them on an agenda as one item, which is how they are listed on the agenda?
It's not actually one item, it's two different items. The motion is just that it's two separate ordinances. The motion is simply that both ordinances be approved.
So we combine both ordinances into one agenda item.
Into one motion, yes.
Well, we combined it in the agenda too, because there's an agenda item 8A that contains both items.
Yes, it's both tax levies.
So we combine both items into one agenda item. We combine both levies. So we're not voting on two separate items. We're voting on one agenda item, which is two separate levies, not two separate agenda items as one motion.
It's not uncommon for us to have one agenda item, but to have multiple things under that agenda item. So this would just be an example of that. So look at it as this is the general item is the levies, and then we've got the city levy and we've got the library levy.
Okay.
So that is how that would be viewed.
Okay, thank you. Scott. Should this not pass, Are there other ways in which we are currently paying pension obligations? So and I ask that because this is being portrayed that those who are against this seem to be against first responders. And that's wrong. And that's being completely wrong in how that's being portrayed. And I take great offense to that. So are there ways beyond property taxes that this increase to the pension fund can be paid?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the current year, we're utilizing over $1 million in reserves that were dedicated to the pensions. So that's
Okay.
going away. So we have to make that up. And so the question then becomes to make it up, versus other council initiatives or desires. Do we want to do $2 to $3 million more in roads, et cetera, et cetera? Then that's where the discussion comes into play.
Okay.
We could utilize other revenues.
How much did the surplus increase last year for the city of Bloomington?
It's substantially, I think it was about $9 million. I
And what is your projected for this year?
have no idea right now.
Okay. Would you
Because-
say it is going to go up though?
I can't say that right now. Revenues are doing really well. We're having a delayed impact on it from inflation. So that's, I'll make a couple comments. So last year's add to reserves, in my opinion, was an anomaly related to the federal stimulus. So income taxes, replacement taxes, which is a form of income taxes, all tax revenues were through the roof. The economy was hot. That's why the Fed's doing what it's doing now. So that is not a consistent addition to reserves. We were averaging a little over like $2.6 million in the prior couple of years to last year in adding to reserves. This year, our revenues are they're pretty hot right now because of inflation. So people are still buying the same quantity of items. They're paying more. But, the shoe's going to drop on that, in my opinion, at some time. So the costs, there's a lot of items we can't even buy right now. Eventually, we're going to have to try to find a way to buy those. So looking at the revenues, it looks like we're going to add to reserves this year. But I still think that inflation is really going to come back and hit us hard. And I don't have any idea right now. But I just want to make sure, my opinion, professional, comment is last year's reserve addition to reserves was kind of a one-time deal related to the federal $5 trillion, which hasn't even all gone out yet in stimulus dollars. So
Okay.
sorry about the long.
I'm going to skip for just a second because I need to piggyback here for just a moment. In the next item, are we being asked to pay $7.3 million in bonds?
No, that's jumping ahead. Is that so abatements? So like when we issue bonds, part of the compliance, the language in those ordinances says we're going to utilize our strongest form of taxation, which is the levy, to pay for those bonds. We don't do that though. It's like the sewer, if the sewer has some bonds, they pay for that out of sewer fees. We raised the sales tax back in 2016. Portion of that was for the arena bond and for the BCPA bond. So those bonds are paid with sales tax. And then we just source for the rest. So that is, we're basically telling the investment community, we got $7 million available from other funds besides the levy to pay for these bonds.
Okay, is that
It's
next?
it's a housekeeping item.
Is that next one a decrease in property taxes, or are they going to be staying the same above
That
that?
it has no impact on property taxes
Okay.
at all.
Thank you. I just go back to feed me. We are becoming Audrey too. And there is no comparison to normal. It'd be interested to see the tax per citizen when you compare Bloomington to normal. So thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, we have reached the end of our time on this item. But is there a motion to continue? I didn't
I'd
want to
make a
scare you
motion
guys.
to adjourn.
Okay,
By 15 minutes.
10. Say maybe 10, because you only have two other people who want to speak.
I need 2 minutes.
Okay, all right. One, okay, all right, then let's do 10. Okay,
10.
thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, all right. Voice vote, right? Okay.
We can do electronic. I just updated it.
Oh. Yes. Sorry. Okay. Can we have a couple people whose votes don't, whose links are not working? Councilmember Urban?
Councilmember Urban, do you want to voice your vote? Okay.
That's what the dot is. Okay, sounds good. All right, so we have 10 more minutes. So Councilmember Motley. you go.
So in 2016, the city's budget was in the $180 million range. That came to 78,343, or on a population of 78,343 people. That was about $2,306 per person that we were running the city of Bloomington. This year, with the current budget, that has increased to 269 million, which is per person $3,436. I just offer that as context. Absent a constraint or any shared belief system that there should be some boundaries upon which it is fair to tax the folks who live here, that we should come to some consensus that we should look for opportunities to reverse that trend. That trend far exceeds inflation, and it certainly far exceeds what I think we could be running the city operations for and doing an outstanding job in turn. So I just offer that for context. There are other opportunities for us to fund fully the public safety pensions. That is very important. I understand that there are other revenue sources that we could lean on there. So with that, those are my comments. What should that number be as we look at cost per resident in terms of the city's overhead?
Thank you. Did you want to?
I actually have run those numbers. You asked about that before, so just, I don't want to get into point counterpoint, but I do want to emphasize that the total budgets include the capital projects. So that's what the huge deviation between 2016 and 2023 is a $20 million capital projects total for 2016 and a $57 million capital projects total for 2023. So when you adjust for those capital projects, it does normalize that growth quite a lot. So I just wanted to put that in context.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Becker?
Just real quick, and these points have been made, but I think Councilmember Crable made this point early, is that, you know, at the retreat, we all agreed that we want to support our first responders, and everybody has said that. So acknowledging that, and also acknowledging Councilmember Walsh, who said that a vote against this is not a vote against that, because we as a council will support the pensions for our first responders. I don't see any way that that doesn't happen. Second comment is more in line with Councilmember Montney, where I believe that we can, because of the excellence of our finance staff, and that is meant as a true compliment, we can manage this without that increase. I really believe we can. In the businesses that I run, I manage them that way by decreasing costs and increasing efficiency, rather than trying to raise the revenue in some cases when you have no choice. So I believe there are alternatives to this increase, and I believe it can be done and still provide the same level, the same services, even at a better level for less money. That's why I'm against it.
Okay, sounds good. I think we're going to go ahead and vote now. Okay, there's, the item passes, 5 yeas and 3 nays. Madam Clerk, would you announce the nays?
Councilmember Welch, Councilmember Becker, and Councilmember Mani.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 8B, consideration action to approve 2 resolutions abating property taxes totaling approximately $7,336,503. And including 1, a resolution abating all or a portion of the taxes heretofore levied to pay debt service on certain obligation bonds of the city of Bloomington, McLean County, Illinois, and 2, a resolution abating tax levy for rent payable under lease agreement between the Public Building Commission, McLean County, and the city of Bloomington for the old Champion building and the expansion of the parking garage as requested by the Finance Department. And I am going to turn it over to City Manager Gleason for introductory remarks.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Very brief comment. This is ground that Scott actually had covered a little bit, and I know he might have some additional comments. But 8B is similar to 8A in that there are 2 resolutions that can be found in your packets, like there were 2 ordinances that could be found in the packet under 8A. This could be approved by 2 motions for 2 resolutions, or 1 motion for both resolutions is the only comment I was going to add. Scott?
Thank you, City Manager. Next slide, please. As I indicated previously, the ordinances and the covenants related to issuance of bonds and leases many times reference the city's ability to levy taxes, and the levy is the strongest tax available. And so those are always incorporated into those documents. So every year we have this housekeeping, these housekeeping resolutions. So related to the total that's captured in all those, and some of them are very old documents. We had a discussion prior to the meeting about the use of the Champion building. We're going to amend that next year. That's the government center, the original Champion Federal building. Just so it's clear to the community. So it basically says that we even those were captured in the original covenants, we have to legally provide these resolutions saying we're not going to pay them from the levy. So I mentioned we have sewer bonds, we have sales tax. Part of the home rule increase in 2016 was related to the arena and the BCPA. So this is just a housekeeping resolutions that we have our bond council review and update for us and approve them every year, because we're only we're levying for about $969,000 worth of bond payments, because there's substantial amounts that are being paid by other revenue source. So again, sorry about that. This has no impact on the levy itself. It's just a legal document, a legal housekeeping item that we have to go through every year. So next slide, please. So my recommendation is that we approve the levy tax abatement for a total of $7.3 million.
Okay. Thank you. We have allotted 3 minutes for questions on this one. So divided by 9, that's 20 seconds each. Questions, motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, but I have a question.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Bullen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
But I
second
also
by,
have a point to make.
Approve both resolutions, correct?
Yes.
yes, okay. All right. Okay, so second by Councilmember Crable. And Councilmember Bullen, you have a question, 20 seconds.
20 seconds. Yeah, so that's $7 million plus that is coming out of general revenue.
No, no, it's not coming out of anything. It's just a legal message to the investment community that we're finding $7 million from other sources other than the levy. So as I mentioned, there's sewer payments, there's the arena. So it's coming from various funds but these are debt payments. They're just not being paid from the levy.
Okay. But
mean-
are they being paid this year?
Yes. Well, I mean,
Okay.
we always make our debt
Okay.
payments.
So you're paying debt with that amount of money this year, or no? Or it's just a statement that we,
Well, part of it, so like the PVC lease, there's an exhibit in there. That is like part of the original lease amounts. We're down to, because it was an estimate.
Okay.
The lease is basically paid off, but it's the operations, management or maintenance. I can't get the word out. So we're down to like $500,000. So even though it says we're abating $917,000, our budget is $500,000. So these dollar amounts don't match exactly to our budget, but they match to the legal documentation that's on file with the clerk. So it's kind of like an amendment to the filings with the county clerk. If that makes more sense.
it doesn't, but I
It-
trust you.
Yeah, okay. That's
We'll-
why we have our
we'll
bond
talk.
counsel
We'll
review them
talk.
every year too.
Okay. Councilmember Craven?
Very quickly, I just want to emphasize, you were talking about investors, right? Looking at the city using other funds, right? Other than debt, right? Or bonds to pay, right? And this looks better to investors, more likely for them to invest in our bonds and potentially also help with whatever interest rate. Am I?
Well, I made that comment related to the levy and showing, I have made that, the dedication to pensions. And because that is a highly reviewed part of the rating process, your pension liability. These abatements, they don't necessarily impact investors, but you need to file them so that they see you're in compliance with your original documentation, you're keeping up to date on everything. So, you're tried and true kind of.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Councilmember Walsh?
Thank you. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this one. Educate me. So we've got 7.3 million there in payments that we need to make, give or take. Is that correct?
I'm gonna use the PBC, which is the government center.
Right.
And the link as an example. So in the original documentation, the legal documentation that was signed and filed with the county clerk, it said for this coming year, we'd owe $900,000.
Okay.
Okay, our expectation is going to be something different than that based on maintenance. But that documentation referenced that we'd be paying for that out of our levy, that we
Okay.
levy for it. So what we're doing here is just saying, we're not going to levy for this. We're going to find the money somewhere else. I promise.
Okay.
You
All
know,
right.
that's what the city is committing to here is we promise we're going to find these dollars somewhere else. But what I want to emphasize though is that 7.3, that doesn't match exactly to our debt service.
Right. Okay.
Liability.
All right. I understand that. The 7.3 million, is that money that we've levied in the past? That we've said we need to raise property taxes by this amount?
No, the 7.3 million is the total of all the different debts we have on file with the county.
Right.
Of what it says we're going to owe in the coming year.
Okay.
So that's just like it's a futuristic amount that's been captured at the clerk level via these agreements that says we owe 7.3 million and we've promised to pay it out of our levy. We're saying we're not going to pay it out of our levy. We're going to make good on other revenue sources for that payment. And
Okay.
this is our resolution saying that we're going to do that.
All right. So we've got 7.3 million, give or take there, that we're not going to be paying out of our property tax levy. We've got other sources. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Of the items that we're paying that are bond payments, et cetera, how many of those items were things that we passed, that the council passed a property tax increase in order to pay those bonds?
Well, we haven't done a property tax increase other than the library for their levy side. In many years, I don't remember
What's paying for the arena?
sales tax.
Sales tax is 100%. There was never a property tax for the Coliseum.
I can't say never, but
Okay.
I don't think so going back.
What
Sales
about
tax-
BCPA?
Sales tax?
All sales tax?
Yes, the
So-
the 2016 sales tax increase was for the BCPA and the arena bonds.
All right.
in
So there's
addition to
nothing
rebates.
here that would have that we told the taxpayers in the past, we need a property tax increase to pay for these things. We've got the money elsewhere, and that's what we're doing to pay for it.
Right. I
Okay.
would agree with that.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We are way past our 3 minutes, so.
Questions?
Yes, can we vote now?
The motion or the motion is live on the electronic voting.
Okay, and the motion is to approve it as presented, both
Correct.
resolutions.
Both resolutions.
Okay, the motion passes. There are no nays to announce. Thank you, Scott. The next item on the agenda is a presentation and discussion of the Public Works 2022 road work wrap-up as requested by the Public Works Department. And I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Gleason once again for introductory comments.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I know that we're an hour into the meeting, but this is 10 or 15 minutes that hopefully the council finds very enjoyable. The community appreciates, and it's something that as staff, we're very proud of. We understand when we talk about roads and sidewalks or asphalt and concrete that the city council and staff are under intense scrutiny to keep up and possibly advance our yearly totals of repair work that we do. And this is an opportunity that we've have taken at the end of every construction season since 2018, trying to increase that awareness of what actually is being accomplished. Kevin Cothey's a Public Works Director. He does a great job. But this is also an opportunity to recognize the prime contractors, the outside subcontractors, the local union halls, our public works staff, obviously, and all the different city departments that have a hand in exactly what you're about to see. So with that said, Kevin, I'm going to turn this over to you. And I think the slide presentation, a couple of videos are about 10 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you, City Manager, Mayor, and council members for allowing us to present the year-end wrap-up for the 2022 calendar year roadwork. My thanks to the many staff involved in putting together this presentation, with a special shout out to Michael Hill and Public Works. We have 70 slides with pictures and video clips to share with you tonight in roughly 7 minutes. There are a lot of good pictures that tell the story of the labor, materials, and equipment used to resurface and maintain our roads. Next slide. Information about city projects, including the street work, can be found on the city's website. And there's also shortcuts. If you go to bloomingtonstreets.com, bloomingtonunderground.com, you'll find project updates out there that include road construction with interactive maps, and citizens can sign up for email or SMS text notification updates through the website. So a lot of good information kept out there on the websites. Next slide, please. Starting off, Public Works Streets and Sewers crews work on many types of repairs, from sewers to inlets, from potholes to permanent pothole patching and general street patches that many times are from utility repairs. These pictures you're seeing show part of the pavement being replaced on Center Street just north of Jefferson after water crews completed repairs and backfilled the excavation. Many thanks to the public service crews who work hard to maintain our infrastructure, including the city streets. This map shows the FY22 resurfacing work that was completed this summer. A lot of this work started the prior year. This one shows in red the FY23 resurfacing contract work that's under contract right now. And then this map shows in blue the streets with the resurfacing for, pavement preservation. And then this list is the streets that were going to be done yet in the FY23 year as of the spring. The video here shows a lot of the different operations. Right now you see the milling going on a street. And then the old street surface is hauled off in the trucks. That material is actually recycled. And here you see a curb machine pouring some replacement curb, a saw cutting a concrete saw cutting out for a lay down or a driveway. The pavers that lay the asphalt, the rollers that finish out rolling the asphalt. A lot of video here that shows a lot of the operations that go into making a new asphalt surface on a street. Here you see the inspector is checking the depth of the asphalt going down to make sure it's the proper thickness. And these pavers do a good job of providing the right thickness and a good surface to drive on. A lot of nice video here that really tells a story about resurfacing of the streets. Here you see the streets in alphabetical order that were done this year. And these pictures show, once again, the different operations for the streets, from milling to rolling to placing the asphalt. There's a lot of things that go into the street resurfacing besides what you're seeing here, that include inlet and manhole adjustments, spot curb replacements, the sidewalk work, repairs to the subgrade. Here is a picture that shows a concrete street that was resurfaced. It's part of Emerson. That was the bad joints in the concrete that were patched before the new asphalt went down. Here you can see the sidewalk being replaced along part of Gridley as part of that work. As part of the resurfacing, we do bring the sidewalk ramps into ADA compliance as required by the ADA Act. And we also work to fix mid-block sidewalks as we can to give a passable route that's ADA compliant. With resurfacing, besides the milling, and here you see the street sweeping after the milling to clean up the loose material that's left. As staff prepares to bid out the work, we have cores taken of the side or of the street pavement to assess how much pavement there is and its quality. Using that information, our engineers and technicians figure out how much milling to be done on each street, how much asphalt to place back, usually in 2 lifts. And so a lot of times you'll see, like here, the milled surface, the binder that's on the first layer of asphalt. And then here you can see the tack coat that binds the surface coat to the binder layer. Also on that picture was a product that is longitudinal joint seal that we use to put in between the layers of asphalt at the cold joint that helps to keep that surface from unraveling. Many times you'll see on an older asphalt street that the cold joint at the center of the lanes starts to come apart first. These newer products like longitudinal joint seal, we're using that to our advantage to help make that road last longer. And once again, you can see here, we're already down to the R's. A lot of streets that were done this year, both residential streets and a lot of arterials and collectors as well. So once again, just a lot of good work done this year on the streets. Soon here, we're going to switch into our sidewalks, which are besides the resurfacing work, there's other sidewalk work that goes on. That's critical, like I say, to comply with ADA as we bring these streets up, upgrade with the resurfacing. You'll notice in the pictures, the truncated domes, the red truncated domes in the corners. So here you see a focus just on sidewalk work. We have a contractor that we hire specifically to take care of the sidewalk program. And they do a lot of great work around town. Obviously, there's a lot of need for sidewalk. We have our sidewalk master plan that identified that, but as time goes on, sidewalk continues to deteriorate too. So a lot of good work with the sidewalks. We also did some work in the downtown area with the Route 66 parklet. That's what you're seeing here is a nice feature downtown that was added. Took out a couple parking stalls and added some benches after all the concrete was poured and finished here. Turned out very nice on Main Street, just north of Jefferson. In addition to sidewalk work, we also, and here you can see some concrete work that's being done. We're coming up on some work that is pavement patching, which involves repairs to streets that doesn't necessarily entail resurfacing the entire street. Here's some pavement patching that was done on Brown Street where the concrete fell apart. And we had a contractor go in and replace a section of Brown Street. Didn't do the whole street, didn't resurface it, but actually replaced the bad concrete that was out there. We did that not only on Brown Street, but we did some patching out by 2100 East, which is a road out by the Grove. There you can see that. We also worked on some concrete pavement on Hershey Road up by Meyer that was bad joints and replaced that. So you can see that you know, it's not just strictly resurfacing, but it's a lot of other work that we do to make our roads last longer and be in better shape. Here's the work on Hershey by Meyer. And then we're coming up to Locust Colton real quick here. And a lot of you are familiar with the Locust Colton project. That's primarily related to the, you know, the infrastructure that's underground with new water, new sewers. But in doing that, we also have to, you know, replace roads and sidewalks and so forth. So this is the Locust Colton work. And so that's all part of it as well. We bid all these different projects. We have different contractors that work on this stuff. We invited a lot of these contractors to come tonight. Most of them could not make it tonight, but certainly they'll be watching in the community. We'll be watching, and we just want to acknowledge all the good work they do. Not just the one component of resurfacing, but all these components. Here you can see with the Locust Colton, they put down some fabric that reinforces the subgrades and helps make the road last longer. So right there, we're done with 70 slides, just like that.
Okay, awesome.
So, once again, I just want to thank all the people who work on completing these projects, from our city staff to the contractors and all the workers involved. They do a great job. And I'll turn it over to all of you for questions.
Okay, sounds good. And I think City Manager Gleason, do you have any additional comments?
Just real quick, Mayor. One, nice job, Kevin. We actually trimmed this presentation down a little bit, given the content of the council meeting. So we did covered a whole lot of ground in a short amount of time. Also want to recognize, you know, the elected again and provide a victory lap for all of you, and also for the staff that are involved in this, and want the community to truly see the pledge and the dedication to the asphalt and concrete projects around the city. And then also in 2023, council's made it very clear that asphalt and concrete projects, streets and sidewalk projects are a priority, and have dedicated more funds to this. And we look forward to delivering in this time next year, showing even more being accomplished. So thank you for giving me a chance to say those additional comments, Mayor.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Do we have comments from council? Councilmember Motley?
So in all, how many miles did we repave this year?
I don't have that number for you tonight. We've, as you know, we did our resurfacing work by fiscal year. So FY22 was finished this summer. We started getting into FY23 this year. So there's a mix there. So because it you know, with our fiscal year starting May 1st, a lot of times the contracts don't wrap up until the following year. So you're actually seeing a combination of FY22 and FY23. By contract, we have those totals. We'd have to do some work to figure out exactly what was done this construction season.
In terms of the red lines on the chart,
Yeah,
have you tallied those up? I know.
we have. I don't have that in front of me tonight. I'm sorry.
So last year at this meeting, I think the answer was 15 miles. Do you think we did roughly the same?
Probably. Like I
Okay.
say, I don't have that in front of me, so I don't want to commit to
Okay.
anything, but probably very similar. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if we did roughly the same, I mean, let's just consider we did roughly the same. I mean, that's less than 2% of the lane miles that we have here in Bloomington. So, you know, when I think about our obligation to this community and why there's so much noise around the streets, I think APWA, the trade association, and other sources kind of evaluate pavement to last roughly, 25 years. And we're touching our roads with repavement once every 56 years. So we're losing ground, actually, at least it appears we're losing ground overall. It's just a comment. I'm just checking to see if that's how you see it, or if there's some other data points, such as the percentage of streets that are currently rated in that fair or below category, if I'm missing something.
Yeah, life of the streets varies so much between, asphalt and concrete, how thick it is, whether it's, on a residential street or arterial and so forth. There's a lot of variables there. And as we get, with our software program, as we get more data points in that software program, we should be able to give a much better assessment of what you're asking for, as far as, our actual experience in Bloomington. I can tell you that, there's some streets, like for instance, a section of Bunn that was last resurfaced in 1978, hasn't been resurfaced since, but, and it's not horrible either. So there are some outliers that last really long. There are also some that don't last as long. So I don't have a good answer for you right now.
And you also have pavement preservation that plays a part
Yes,
in
we
that
do.
too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that helps. The pavement preservation helps to extend the life of our pavements. They say the right treatment at the right time can, do a lot, just like at your home, right? If you have siding that is the older style, it has to be painted. If you keep up with it, you can keep wood and painted siding for decades, right? Even potentially centuries if it's kept up. But if it's not kept up, you end up having to replace it or sections of it and that type of thing. So we try to do our best to keep up with the roads and keep them, where they before they really fall apart.
Okay, well, thank you.
So I've been seeing and have had some residents reach out about sinkholes in the pavement. And I think there was some exchange with your department a few months ago as we checked into that. And at that point, it seemed to be a growing problem that in certain areas of the pavement up near gutters and curbs and things like that, I think at that point we had amassed about 100, I think the number maybe was 118 of these sinkholes where we have, the little warning barricades being put up. Can you give an update on how that's going? How many of those do we still have remaining to repair?
We've been making progress on those. I don't know the number right now off the top of my head, but I know that our public service streets and sewers crews have been working hard to get those caught up. There's still barricades that have been out there for a year that need to be addressed, but we're working to try to get to them. The sinkholes vary depending. In some cases, it's just an inlet and a pretty simple repair. It still takes some time to do. Other times it might be a sewer line that's much deeper that takes longer to dig and repair and that type of thing. So each one has to be looked at separately and assessed and the repairs made. So it does take some time.
And my last question really is just about the division of work between your staff and contractors. What work is done in-house versus what work is done through contractors?
Our engineering division works closely with the public service streets and sewers and makes assessments. Most of the time, when there is a sinkhole or whatever immediate need that needs attention, our public service streets and sewers, they'll place a barricade and make that initial assessment of televising the sewer, trying to figure out what the exact problem is, the nature of the problem. And then depending on the nature of the problem and what that fix might be, our streets and sewers crews are kept very busy all the time, as you know, with all the barricades out there to get those repairs done. In some cases, because of the depth of the sewer or the complexity of the repair, it'll be turned over to a contractor. With the streets, as far as the pavements and so forth, same type of thing. they'll go out and do, repairs like on Center Street where we had the water crews doing, repair work out there. They'll fix most of those, but, typically the stuff that's given to contractors to do is because we don't necessarily have the equipment or the manpower or the expertise to deal with it. But we certainly keep our crews busy all the time with all the repairs that need to be done.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Kevin, for that this evening. It's clear to me that there's a lot of work going on. I just have one quick anecdote that I want to relate to you. I had a member of my ward contacted me about 2 weeks ago, and there was a sewer right down the street from his home that had was really deteriorating. There was a sawhorse by it, and he was driving by on his way to work in the morning, getting the sawhorse standing back up. I contacted Public Works, that this was going on, and within 2 days, I got a message back that he was number 10 on the list. And then earlier at the end of last week, a crew from Public Works was out there, was beginning to repair this spot. And so he contacted me this morning and thanked me for getting that done. I know this is just one example, but I just want to point out there are good things going on, in repairs of this city. And I want to commend you for responding to this individual. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. And I also want to say thank you, Kevin, for all the work that you've done being the senior member on this council. I remember years where we didn't spend as much money on, street repair. And I know that we have increased that significantly over the years. And I also know that when we do that, it adds more on your plate as staff members. That means that you have a lot more to monitor, to work on with contractors. So it's not just a matter of increasing the amount of money that we're putting at your disposal, but it also requires you to spend a lot more time on these things. So we definitely appreciate all the work that you're doing and encourage you to keep doing more. Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate your support as well. Thank you.
Awesome.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question. Obviously, with more money, you could do more, or we could have contractors do more. But in order to really have contractors do more, we still have the Bloomington preference on ordinance, that it's something that this council would need to address when it comes to road work in order to really truly go out and spend more money and get more miles done each year. Is that correct?
There's some truth there. And just so everybody knows, the FY23B, if you will, the roughly $2 million resurfacing work is going to be out for bid this month. And because it's using ARPA money, the council's local preference doesn't apply.
Okay.
So this bid will kind of test the water, so to speak, if there are the other contractors that are out there, if they're interested in a smaller contract, whether they be out of town or other local contractors, we'll see what we get for bids.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And this item was presentation only, so we are going to move on to item number 9 on the agenda. Thank you, Kevin. And which is a city manager's discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
It says you have
quick.
4 minutes and 30 seconds, but
I'm
cutting
gonna
it down
move
to
quick.
2.
I should have said this on the front end, but the reason I'm joining virtually is I had a direct COVID exposure. I do not have COVID, nor do I have any symptoms. I could be there with a mask on, but I just thought, why take the chance, sitting as closely as I do to everyone. I think I've got 5 slides. I have a stocking stuffer Saturday. Is that the first slide? And that is December 17th, this coming Saturday. It's stocking stuffers, shop small in our downtown. And then the next slide, please, Phil. Indoor holiday farmers market, December 17th, and it is indoors. It's not the pre-order. that I think I mentioned previously, but it is 9 a.m. to noon. And then the third slide is how to support downtown in January. And again, it's just by way of shopping small and visiting our downtown, but there will not be a first Friday in January. Fourth slide. We are already the sweetest spot in America, and our first Friday in 2023 will be Tour de Chocolate, and that is February 3rd. Already starting to advertise that. It's always well attended and a great job by all. Last slide is a welcome list for new employees. Greg Wilson actually is a recent hire, as all 5 are, but quite the pickup for us. He comes to us and joins Michael Hurt's team in the diversity, equity, and inclusion team. And then we have Robert Amadei, Kristen Woods, Caleb Mitchell, and Nicole Goy has joined us as well. All 5 employees I've met, and great additions to the city. We feel very lucky that we've not only chosen them, but they've chosen us. And then lastly, Mayor, before I turn it back to you and the council, it's the holiday season, very last meeting for this year. We'll join again after the new year. First council meeting is January 9th. And just want to quickly comment to all those happy holidays and safe travels if you're on the road. I know that everyone takes this time of year to pause and think about all the many things that we have to be thankful for. And I know I definitely am as well. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays.
All right, thank you, City Manager Gleason, and the mayor's comment, short and sweet. Happy holidays to everyone, and I hope you have a safe and enjoyable time with whoever you choose to celebrate. Councilmember Crable.
I will try to be short and sweet, Mayor. A couple of things we approved on the consent agenda that I just wanted to point out. We approved funding for the Ecology Action Center, which is shared by Normal and the county. They've been around in some form since 1971, and they're in charge of helping us meet the Illinois Solid Waste Management Planning and Recycling Act. Between 2013 and I think 2019, our recycling rate has gone up from 37 to 46%. The goal is 50%. They planted 10,000 trees. They do a lot of education in classrooms with adults, composting, things like that. So great asset to our community. And then the habitat agenda item. This is, I think, thinking outside the box, a duplex for 2 family and Habitat's done this is like their 198th home, and they're a key asset to creating affordable housing in the community. And one thing I noted in the packet is that this duplex idea is going to be presented to Habitat International as a pilot program. So that's pretty cool for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Bullen. Is there a second? Okay, second by Councilmember Becker. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.